Welcome back to the React Native course. Now get ready for an exciting and hands-on section where we'll take our skills to the next level by creating a project from scratch, the donation application. In this section, we will be building the donation application step by step. Our focus will be on the project setup, importing the necessary libraries, and setting up navigation. This is where we'll put all our knowledge and skills together, combining design principles and component building to create a solid foundation for the application. While functionality won't be the main focus in this section, it's important to emphasize the value of practicing your skills and gaining a deeper understanding of how to start a project from the ground up. We've installed multiple applications until now, but this one is going to be the most important one because it will clearly show you what setup process you might have to go through whenever you start your own project. We'll primarily focus on design and building the components needed for the donation application, and this will provide you with valuable hands-on experience in creating intuitive and visually appealing user interfaces. Now, I want to address something important. You have the option to skip this section if you prefer, as the code will be writing here will be provided in the next section. However, I highly encourage you to consider taking on this challenge and working through this section. And by doing so, you'll have the opportunity to practice your skills, reinforce your understanding, and gain the confidence needed to kickstart your own projects. Remember, practice makes it perfect. By putting all your knowledge into action and building a project from scratch, you'll enhance your skills, overcome obstacles, and grow as a React Native developer. So I invite you to dive into this section with enthusiasm and embrace the opportunity to strengthen your abilities. Let's create the donation application together, step by step, and pave the way for your future projects. Trust in your abilities, enjoy the process, and let's make the magic happen. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.
Hi, and welcome back. In this video, we'll be taking the first steps towards building our donation mobile application, and we'll start by installing the initial project and cleaning up some of the things in the main file. And by the end of this video, you're going to have a project set up that will be ready for our next videos so that we can implement our own custom features. So let's get started. First of all, we need to open a terminal. Let's navigate to the desktop. That's where I want my files to be. And I'm just going to type npx react native init donation app. I'll let this run. It's going to take some time for a complete download of the template and installation of pods. So please feel free to come back to this video once your installation has been complete. Great. Now that our installation is complete, we can just copy this instruction to let it run on the iOS simulator. And we can just navigate to our editor. I use WebStorm. You can open it up in any editor that you'd like. And I'm just going to navigate to desktop and I'm going to select donation app and I'm just going to open it up. Great. Now my Metro Bundler is running and here's our donation app appearing in our simulator. I'm going to let the Metro Bundler run so that we can see the changes that we're about to make. And I'm just going to go to app file. And I'm going to delete everything that we don't need. So I'm just going to delete that comment. I'm going to leave the safe area view only from React Native. I'm going to delete this, and we don't need this component here. Neither do we need this part or these imports. And I'm just going to rewrite how app is made here because we're not going to be using TypeScript. So I'm going to do this instead. We don't need these or these tiles here. And the only thing that I'm going to leave from the components here is the safe area view. I'm going to delete these tiles as well. I'm going to save this. And now I see the blank screen. So we're ready for the next videos now to start the setup of our project. Thanks so much for watching and see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back to this video tutorial of the donation mobile app. And today we're going to start with making the first page. I was observing the design of the Figma file that I have here, and I have discovered that they also use Interfont family as we have used it in our last project. And I wanted to start off by installing it. For those people who have not installed the custom font Inter yet, You can just go to fontsgoogle.com, find Inter, download the package. Let's open this up. Here, you're going to go to the PDF file and you're going to click install. Just because I already have it installed, I am not going to replace my files, but just click on install and you're going to have it installed on your computer. And later on, what we need is to move these files into our assets folder that we're about to make. So let's do that. And then I'm going to create new directory inside of here and call it fonts. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all the files from here inside the static folder to the fonts folder. Great. Now they're located here. I'm going to close this. And now we are going to create a new React Native config file, React Native config.js file. And inside here, I'm going to copy the following code. Take your time and copy your code inside here as well. And once you have done that, just navigate to your terminal, go to your project's root. And here you can just run the following command, npx react native asset. Great. Once you have done that, your info plist file should have changed. So let's find the info plist file. And then let's see our fonts. Great. They are installed for iOS. And to check that they were successfully installed for Android as well, just navigate to Android, app, source, main, assets. And here you should see your fonts. If everything's looking good, now you have access to the font. In the next video, we're going to jump into making our header component. So I'll see you there, and thanks so much for watching. Hi, and welcome to today's video. We're going to start off by creating navigation system for our project because now we do know how to create React Native navigation. So let's start off by installing navigation in our project. And for this, we're just going to go to our browser. We're going to look for React Native navigation, go to their website and documentation. And we're going to start off by following their documentation to install everything that we need for navigation. So let's go to our terminal. And inside here, let's navigate to the root of our project, donation app. And then let's just copy this command and let it run. And after we're done with that, we're going to have to run a couple more commands. We're just going to follow with the regular installation. Please copy this for the bare React Native project and let it run as well. And since we're running a higher version than 60 of React Native, we are not going to need this command here, and we can just run the pods for completing our installation. And then we do need to do some more things to make sure that Android setup is all good. So for that, let's just follow the documentation as well. I'm going to make this window smaller. And here we go. So they're telling us to go to Android app, source, main, and then Java. And then we're going to the main activity file. So let's go here. Let's copy this command here. And you can just place it at the end of the file. So right here should be good inside the class. Let's save this and make sure that we have the import for the bundler as well. Great, this is saved for me. And this should install everything that we need, but we are going to be using the Stack Navigator for this project. So let's just quickly install that as well. Great, let's just go to Stack Navigator and follow the installation process here as well. I am going to open up the previous terminal and I'm going to copy this command here and let it run. And once that's done, we need to run this as well for bare React Native project. We don't have Expo, so please don't follow this one here. So let's just copy and paste this here. And then they are telling us that we need to import the React Native gesture handler in the top of our entry file, and our entry file is going to be index.js. So let's just import it right here. Great, let's install the masked view as well in the root of our project. And then let's install the pods. Great, and now once we're done with that, please just close your Metro Bundler and close your simulator as well. Great. And now let's start with npm start 2 dashes and 2 dashes again and reset cache. This will just make sure that we have no issues and no cached files interfering with one another. And I'm just going to press I to run this on iOS. And this is going to be my Metro Bundler, and I'm not going to close it because we want to see the changes that we make in the simulator. Great. So I think that's it for this video. I want to make it short and quick. And in the next video, let's do the header component for our main file. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back. Today, what we're going to be doing is building this header component here and placing it on our home screen. And to do that, what I want to do is first off start by using our navigation. And to do that, we're going to create a new directory called navigation. And then inside it, we're going to create a new file called mainNavigation.js. And here we're going to start off by creating our navigation system. I'm going to make this window bigger, and let's start by creating our navigation. First of all, let's import create stack navigator from React Navigation. And then what we want to do is create our stack. So I'm just going to call it stack, and I'm going to do create stack navigator. Great. And now I'm going to create another constant that is going to be called constant main navigation. And this is going to return our navigation system. Great. So let's do stack.navigator. And inside this, we want to place our initial screen, which is going to be the home screen. And for the name, we are going to be using the constant as we did last time. And for the component, we're going to be using our home screen that we're about to build. So first of all, let's create our file, roots.js. Let's create an exportable constant here called roots. And the first page that we are about to create is the home page. So let's save this and let's import this here, roots.home. Great, let's import. And now we need the home screen. And for that, what we are going to need to do is create a new directory called screens. And here we're going to place a new directory called home. And inside this home, we're going to create, first of all, home.js file that is going to take care of all the components that we want to place on the screen. And we also want to create the style.js file. So let's just import style sheet inside here and create a constant for style and use the style sheet to create the style sheet. And let's export default style. And inside the home, we want to import React from React. We want to import the style we just created. And we also want to create just a default view maybe from native. And let's create const home that is going to return an empty view. And let's export default home. Let's save this. Everything's looking good. And inside here, we're just going to import this home component. Great. Now that we have our navigation, we want to make an export of this main navigation here. And then we want to go back to our app file. And inside here, we are going to import the main navigation. And let's delete the safe area view from here, actually. And let's just return main navigation. So we don't need this here. And inside the home, we can just wrap this inside safe area view. This way, we're going to have more control over each page. And let's put this view inside here. Let's import safe area view. And inside this view, I just create a text called Hello World so that we can make sure that we see the home appear here. And I'm going to need to import text. And let's save this. And now we're having an issue because I forgot to import navigation container to put this inside of. So let's import that and close this. Great. And now we see this appear. Also, I don't think that we're going to be going with the navigation label setup. So let's just get rid of that really quickly. Here, we're going to need screen options, and we're going to say that our header should return null. And that's it. If you want, you can also use header shown false. And then just for the setup purposes, we are also going to create styles here. I want it to be a directory actually. So styles folder. And inside here, I'm going to create a file called globalstyle.js. I'm going to import style sheet from React Native. And I'm going to create const style, or I'm going to call it global style. And I'm going to use the style sheets to create the style sheet. And here we can put our global styles. And this file will serve for us anytime we want to create a style that could be applied anywhere. And it's not somehow connected to each screen or a component. If you want a style that's connected to a component or a screen, let's just create it inside the directory for that component or a screen. So here we have a gray background right now. So I'm just going to create a style called background white. And I'm going to say background color. Instead of white, I'm just going to give it the color for white. Actually, I prefer that. And on our home page, we can create a style and we can call the global style dot background white and import the global style here. And also, I didn't really give a lot of attention to this in the last project, but I do like and think that advanced developers should be sorting their imports, and it's a good code formatting consistency to do so that in the bigger projects, you're able to find everything easier for your projects. And if we want this page to take up the whole space, we could also use the flex. So we can just create flex style here and say flex1. Go to our home page and assign it here as well from global style.flex. Let's save this. And now our project's home page is taking up the whole page, which is great. So this is mainly our setup, but we did learn about scaling functions and how important they are for us from the last project. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details of setting them up again. If you're interested in that, please dive into the appropriate section. It's going to be listed below this video. But for now, I'm just going to copy that scaling file inside our styles folder. So let's do this and copy it here. And now I have some error because of this, because we haven't installed the React Native device info for our project. So what I'm going to do is go to the terminal, go to the root of this project, donation app. And I'm going to install this package, install React Native device info, and I'm going to save it. And I just want to make sure that there are no pods to install. So I'm going to pod install again. Actually, there is. So good. Please do this. Definitely. And now we should be able to use the React Native device info. I'm just going to resave this. Okay, my errors coming from my editor are gone. I don't need this terminal anymore. I'm going to reload the app and it seems like I'm getting no issues, which is great. So I'm thinking that this might be it for this video as well, just because I do not want to be taking up a bunch of time for every video. So I promise we're going to get into doing this component in the next upcoming video, and I'll meet you there. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon. Hi, and welcome back. I just want to take some time to discuss how we're going to be building this application because I think it's important to always plan ahead and have some kind of architecture in your mind of how you're going to be handling your project. And this project is only going to take up 3 pages. One is going to be homepage, another one is going to be the description of the donation, and the third one is going to be making the actual payment. So I just want to say that we are going to be creating the actual payment system for this application in the upcoming module. But why we're making this whole donation mobile application is because I want to teach you how to manage your data with Redux in the next module. So I want to prepare for that time. And because of that, I think it's going to be a better decision to create each of these components for our current section, the donation application section. And in the next session, we're going to be taking care of how we are going to be handling the display of all of this information on our screens using the Redux toolkit. So for now, in this section, what we're going to be doing is building the components themselves standalone. So we're going to be building this kind of tabs given here and the badges given for each type of category that people could be donating to. And we're going to be creating the subtitles and titles and the back buttons and all of that, and these input fields as well. So I think it's important for us to take some time and explore what we're going to have to make here. So we're definitely going to have header component. And if we look at this and the styles given in the Figma file, we are going to see that we're going to have to reuse this a lot. So this kind of component is also given on My Cart payment, for example. Nothing really changes for the header and how it's built in terms of font styling here. We're going to need a main primary button that is going to be looking like this. And actually, this header here also matches up with My Cart payment and the header given here. So it's going to be great that we're going to have a single component for that. We're going to be creating the donation items itself as well as a whole that has a price, that has a title, and a picture with the badge given here. And we're going to be creating the search box. So what we're really going to be doing in this section is creating all these components. And then we're going to create a bunch of them together using Redux. And all of the information put in that data management system is going to dictate what information to grab for each of the donation items or for each of the categories given here, which donation should show up here as a selectable donation. So this is going to be very exciting part of our project because the way we are building this section is going to be very similar on how you're going to be making your decisions, your architectural decisions, and the first steps towards your applications in the real world. So this is going to be how you're going to start out, whether you're working at a company or whether you're working on your project. You're always going to need some kind of planning and initial setup. And this section is going to be a perfect example on how you might want to take your first steps towards creating your project. So thanks so much for watching. In the next video, we're going to dive into creating these custom components. And the first one that we're going to be creating is the header. See you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back. Today, we're going to start off by building the components as we discussed in the last video. And we're going to be building a header component. And this header component, for example, has the highest font size. So what we are going to do is create one component that is going to take care of headers, and we are going to pass props to it, and we're going to say what kind of header it is. So for example, in HTML, if you know HTML, you have headers that are 1 to 6, and 6 is the smallest one, and 1 is the biggest one. So we're going to pass props to our header, and it's going to determine what should be its font size automatically. So for example, this is the biggest one, so we might pass a prop 1. And for example, this is one that's smaller, so this might be 2. And this is a little bit even smaller, so this might be 3. So let's start by doing this. I just want to make this visible to us as we're building our component. And we are going to be seeing how this component looks on our homepage. So let's do that. Let's create the components folder here. And let's call our first component header. So we have a header directory, and inside this, we're going to create header.js file. And we definitely are going to need the style.js file for this. So let's just quickly do this. Let's import style sheet here from React Native. Let's the style variable and create the style sheet. For this, let's export default style. And then let's do the very basics here as well. Let's import React from React. And then we are going to need the view container and the text, definitely. So let's import those from React Native. We're going to create the header constant that is going to accept props. And for now, it's just going to return null. And we're going to export default header. So since we already know that we are going to be handling props, we're going to need prop types from prop types, and we don't have this library installed. So I'm just quickly going to do that. I'm going to open a terminal to the donation app. This is the root of our project, and I'm going to do npm install prop types, and I'm going to save this. Great. Now let's start by building our header component. And we want to be seeing how this looks. So the first thing I'm going to do is navigate to our home screen. And I'm going to import this component. So I'm going to import header from our components. I'm going to save this. Instead of hello world, we're going to have the header component showing up here. Wait, let's save this. And currently we see nothing because our header component returns null. But let's start designing this. So we're going to need a view component that is going to be the container for our text. And then we're going to need the text itself. And here we are going to take whatever props passed as the title. Okay. So since we already know that we are going to have a title prop, what we do need to do is say that header prop types, and it's going to require a title, and that prop type has to be a string. And we can set a default value for our headers. So let's do that. And let's say that title is empty by default. Great. So now we do have the title, and let's pass a title from here. And let's say that title is Azari A dot. Let's save this, and we see it appear here. Now, what we want to do is style this text. So I'm just going to give this a style, and I'm going to say that this style is called title 1. So we need to import style from style, right? And now we got to create the title 1. And let's see what this component has. So this component has a font family of Inter. Okay. And it has a font size of 24, for which we are going to use our scaling function. So we're going to do scale font size 24. And now I'm going to save this. And then we need, just going to format this well so that you're able to see it as well. Great. And then we're going to need the line height of 29. So let's save this as well. Great. And then we need the font weight, 600. Let's save this and See how it looks, and it looks very good. Great. So now we are done with title 1. And what we want to do is design how the title 2 would look like. So for this, first of all, what we should do is make sure that we accept a prop type for our types. And let's say that prop type is going to be a number. Now let's say that by default, this type is going to be 1. And we can just pass type 1 here, even though we don't really need it. It was working without it as well. And now what we need is to handle the cases when title is going to be 2 or title is going to be 3. So let's create a function here called tell to apply. And this function is going to return us which style to apply. So we can have a switch case here. And we're going to say that it is dependent on props.type. And if the value is 1, we are going to return style.title 1. The value is 2, we're going to return title 2. If the value is going to be 3, we're going to return style.title 3. I don't think we're going to have any more values, so let's set up a default value returning style.title 1. Great. So now we need to take care of showing this. So let's do style to apply and call this function inside of here. And then let's create title 2 and title 3 styles. So let's do title 2, and title 2 will have the same kind of setup as here. So let's copy this here and say that the only thing that's really changed is font size and line height. So that would be 18 and 22. And let's check out what title 3 would be. It should be here. And it is 16 and 19. Let's take care of that. 16 and 19. And font weight is the same. And let's call this title 3. Now let's go back to our header. These are creating and are looking good. And then let's make this smaller. And let's bring this up here. Let's go to our homepage and create a couple more headers. So let's create type 2 and let's create type 3. So the first one is the biggest one, second one is the medium one, and third one is the smallest one. So great. This is looking good. And now we have all the headers that we might need in this application, which is great. So we're all set with this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching. Hi, and welcome back to our tutorials. The next thing that we're going to be building is going to be our button. We are going to need a primary button that's displayed at the end of the page for the details of the donation page. So let's create this button component. Let's go here and create a new directory called button. And inside here, we're going to create a button.js file. We're going to import React from React. We are going to need a pressable from React Native. And then we are going to create a constant for button. And this is going to return null so far. We're going to export default button. Great. Now we need a style for this. Let's create a style sheet. Create a constant style that uses the style sheet to create our styles. And then let's export default style. Great. So now what we're going to need here is a pressable. And this pressable is going to have a text inside. And this text is going to have a title. So we do need a prop here. And since we have the prop, we need the prop types. And then let's do button prop types. And say that it needs a title that is going to be required and is going to be a string. Great. Now Other than the title, we will need its state, whether it is disabled or enabled. So let's say is disabled, and this is going to be a Boolean. It's not going to be required. We can set up a default value for this and say that by default is disabled is false. And let's set up disabled state here and say props dot is disabled. And then we are going to need some styles for this button. So let's create those styles, but we do need to be looking at how this button is looking like. So let's import our button from our components and use this button here with a title of donate. So now this appears here, but it doesn't really have any styles. So let's work on that a bit. Let's create a style and call this style button. And then we need to import our style from styles. And we do need to create a button tile. So our button is going to be following our designs from here. So let's explore what they have as their design components. So first of all, let's set up the background color, and that is going to be this value here. Great. Now we do need the text styling for this as well. So let's create a style for that. And that would be style.title. So let's go here and do some styles for title. Let's click into here, go to inspect, and let's see what they need. So they need a font family of Inter, font size with a scale font size function that is going to be 16, and font weight is going to be 500, and the line height is going to be scale font size 19. Great. Now we missed the color, which is white. So let's give this some color. Perfect. And now this needs to be aligned in the center. Perfect. This button has some height, which is 55. So let's give it a height with a vertical scaling of 55. Great. And now we do see that donate is right at the top. So we do need to add something from flex. So our flex direction by default right now is column. And to center this vertically, justify content center. Great. So now we need some borders, which is 50. So let's give this border radius of horizontal scale 50. Perfect. And I think our button is done. Let's think about how we want this button to look like when it's disabled. Right now, it seems like it is enabled, but let's test that. Let's say on press console log pressed. Save this. And let's go to our terminal. And it seems like it's being pressed. So let's say that if our button is disabled, we are going to add some styling here. So let's say props is disabled, add tile disabled. Let's save this and go here and create a disabled style. And let's say whenever this is disabled, it has opacity of 0.5. So now let's test how that would look like from our home. So let's create another button and say that if disabled is true. Great. So now if we test whether this is pressable, we're going to see that it is not. I'm pressing right now. So if I press this, we get console logs, but on the disable one, I don't get it. So that's great. That's what we needed exactly. We're going to need a function to execute when the button is pressed. So let's say props on press is what runs when this button is clicked. And let's set up a prop on press. And it's going to be of a type function. And let's set up a default value on press, just going to be an empty function. Great. So now if we were to go to our home and say that on press, we want a function to run. Let's save this. And let's say this should console log, you just pressed me. Let's save this. Go here. And we see that our prop function works. Perfect. I think we're all done with our button component. And now we can move on to something else. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Welcome back to this tutorial. Today we're going to be creating tabs. So we have two kinds of tabs here, one that is active and has a background color similar to the button that we created. And then we have an inactive tab that has a gray background with a different color title as well. Even though this is a little bit different than the button, we could still use what we did for the button component to create the tabs. So I'm actually going to copy this directory and rename the directory name to tab and paste it inside the components. And then I'm going to rename the file as well. And I'm going to call it tab. And once I do that, my editor will ask me if I want to rename the constants as well. And I'm going to say yes. So if your editor doesn't automatically do this for you, please just rename your buttons to tabs here. Here, instead of is disabled state, we are going to have is inactive state. And is inactive is going to be false automatically, and it is going to be a Boolean. But if a tab is inactive, we're going to have to change the background color, and we're also going to have to change the title color. So let's create two styles here. Instead of disabled, we're going to call the style is inactive. And let's create is inactive title here as well. So let's say if props is inactive, then we want to have a style inactive title. And instead of naming this is inactive, actually, let's say inactive tab. And let's rename this button as well and just call it a tab because it is going to be a tab. So let's go to styles and rename the button to tab. And we don't need the disabled state. We need inactive tab, right? So inactive tab. And we're going to have a different styling here. And we're also going to need inactive title. Great. So if a tab is inactive, then its color is this here. So let's say background color and set it to this value. And if the title is inactive, then it has a text color of this. So let's say color is going to be this. And notice that since these are going to be the last tiles applied after these tiles, the background color is going to be overwritten if a tab is inactive. And the color of the text title is also going to be rewritten with this. So we're going to replace these values because these are overwriting the previous values if the tab is inactive. So we also have a different height for these tabs. So let's make sure that we include this here. It has a height of 50 and the font styles are also different. So let's make sure that we consider that. So here the font weight is 500, that is similar. And then font size is 14 and not 16. and the line height is 17. Great, let's save this. And now let's go to our home.js file and just let's get rid of these buttons for the moment. And let's see how our tabs are looking. So I'm going to use the tab component and then I'm going to import this here. I'm going to place it here actually with all the rest of the components. And then it tells me that it needs a title prop. So let's say the title is highlight. And one problem to notice here is that this takes the whole width, while this has a width according to the text. And then it has some horizontal padding to it. So how can we make this take as much width as it needs? There are two ways to handle this situation. One way, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm going to show it to you, is that we place it inside the view component and then we style it and give it some kind of defined width. Let's say horizontal scale 130. And then it's going to become smaller. But if we go with this way, it would mean that for every tab that we use, we're going to have to define the width ourselves. And I think that is going to be annoying and inconsistent. So we're going to use another way. And that another way involves using refs. So far in this project that we've been working on, we have not used refs. But in the hooks section of this course, we do go over how to use refs. And the pressable usually takes the whole block and it doesn't measure the width of what's inside of it. So we're going to have to do this calculation ourselves using the refs. So let's do that. And it's going to be a good practice for you as well. Let's import use refs and use state. And we're going to use state to define width that we're going to set this pressable button to. And then we're going to need the set width for that. And our initial state is going to be 0. Then we're going to use a text ref to find out how much width exactly the text inside of it has. So let's create a constant and call it text ref. And let's use ref and just set it to null. And then we're going to use this text ref to get a reference to the text component here. Great. And then when the component is rendered on the layout of the text, what we're going to do is we're going to get the event and we're going to set the width to event, native event, lines 0, which is going to grab our title that's inside the text. And then we're going to get its width. Great. So now we're setting the width to the width of the text here. And if we console log width and go to our terminal, we're going to see that its width is 60. But what we don't want to see happen is that button exactly becomes the width of the text, because then we're not going to have any kind of horizontal padding that's given here. So if we look at this, we see that horizontal padding is approximately 33 on each side. So what we want to do is define a constant here called padding horizontal and say that it is 33. And then we want to pass one more style here. Let's call it tab width and let's define it here. So tab width is going to be equal to an object that has width of horizontal scale, heading horizontal, times 2, because we need it on each side, plus the width of the text. Great. Let's import the horizontal scale. And now let's save this. And we have some error because we don't need the semicolon here. And great. Now this takes exactly the amount of width that it needs. And we're not going to have to make any kind of containers with custom width every time we want to use this tab. So now let's go back to home and see how this tab would look if it was inactive. Great. These look pretty similar to what's given in our screens. So we can use the tab component later once we're going to start working on our screens. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back to our tutorial. Today we're going to be working on the badges. Badges are very similar with the setup to the tabs that we created. So what I'm going to do is actually copy this directory into the components with the name of badge. And then I'm going to rename this to badge. And I'm going to rename the constants as well. So if we go inside here, my constant is going to be renamed from tab to badge. So if your editor doesn't automatically do that, please do that yourself. And notice that here we're not going to need easy inactive state, and we're not going to need an on-press event either. So let's get rid of these and only leave the title here. And let's get rid of these props as well, because we're not going to need any kind of specific styling according to the inactive state. Great. And then what we do want to do is use the references to calculate the width of this. And the paddings here are actually smaller. So instead of 33, we are going to be using something different. Let's see what that is. That is 10. So let's change this value to 10. And then we have a different background color and text stylings here as well. So let's get into that. So the background color is going to be copied from here, and let's go to styles. Here we don't need inactive tab or inactive title. Let's get rid of these. And let's rename this to badge actually, because this is going to be a badge. And then let's change the background color from blue to green. And its height is also different, which is 22. And we can leave the border radius to 50 because they actually have 100, which is too much. It just means that it needs a circular borders. So 50 is more than enough for that. And then let's change the font styling as well. So here they have font size of 10 and line height of 12. And font weight is 600. So we have 10 here, 12 here, and 600 here. The color is still white, so we're all good with that, and it does need to be centered. So these are all the stylings that we needed to do. And now we should make sure that we don't use any components that we don't need, such as pressable. This badge is not going to be pressable. So what we need is view instead. And we don't need this on-press event. I forgot to delete this with the props. And instead of pressable, we're going to be using views. So let's save this. This is looking good, I think. So let's go to home and then check out how our badge component is looking. So I have the import for the badge here. Make sure that you import it as well. And I'm going to say environment here. I'm going to save it. And if you ask me, they look very similar to each other. So we are good with badges. They look great. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back to our tutorials. We're going to be building our search component, and for that, we're going to be needing Font Awesome icon, which we haven't installed for our application. So all we're going to do today is just install the Font Awesome icons, and in the next video, we're going to be taking care of the search input component. So for that, we're going to need to go to the Font Awesome icon React Native documentation. Let's click on the GitHub link and then go to the official documentation and follow their suggestions. So I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to navigate to the root of our project called Donation App. And then all I'm going to do is copy this command and paste it here. and wait for it to install. And once it's done, I'm going to go to the iOS folder, install the pods. And once that's done, I'm going to run these 3 commands. So just copy these 3 commands. And once this is done, get out of the iOS folder and copy it in your terminal. And when these 3 commands are going to be done, just in case your caches are going to interfere with your application and maybe you're going to get some errors using the Phantasm icons, I suggest that you close your Metro bundler if you have it running. And just close your simulator as well. And then run npm start 2 dashes reset cache. I'm going to click on I so that my iOS simulator runs. And to make sure that my Font Awesome icons are working, I'm going to use one here. And let's use FA search because that's what we're going to be using for our component. And let's import it from the solid icons. So I got 2 imports here. I'm going to save this. And once our application launches, we should be able to see that search component appear on our home screen. Great, it's here. So that's it for this video. Today we installed Font Awesome icons. And in the next video, we're going to be going over how to create our search input component. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video. Hi, and welcome back. Now that we have our Font Awesome icons installed, all we need to do is start creating the search component given here. So let's do that. I'm going to put my editor here and I'm going to get rid of everything on our home screen so that it has a blank view. And what we're going to do later is we're just going to put the search input component here so that it's clear what we're building. And for that, we're going to need to create the search input component. So let's do that. Here, we're going to create a new directory and we're going to call it search. And inside it, we're going to create 2 files. One is going to be named search.js and another one is going to be style.js. Here, we're just going to place our styles and we're going to have to import the style sheet. And then we're going to define our constant for styles and create the style sheet. And we're not going to place any styles here yet. We're just going to export default styles so that we're able to use this in our search component. And here we're just going to do regular stuff. Let's import React from React. Let's create the constant for our search component. Let's make it return null so far. And let's export default search. Now let's use this search component on our home screen so that we're able to see what we're building. And let's make sure that it's imported. Great. And now we see our blank screen again because our component is actually returning null. Let's import the style from our styles and start building this component. So what are we going to need for this? Let's analyze our design. So we're going to need an text input component from React Native. And it's going to have to be in some kind of container because we are also going to have to use the search icon. And we can't provide icons with text input component. So we're going to have to use a view container. Let's import view and text input from React Native. Now let's create a view component inside which we're going to place our text input component. And we're also going to need the Font Awesome icon with FA search value. And let's import this FA search as well. And now we're getting some kind of error. I'm going to reload my application. Okay, now it's all good. It was just some random error because of pods. So reloading did it. Great. So now that we have our view and our text input component, we see that we're not really able to see where our text input component is. So let's apply some styles to it. Let's say that style for the text input component is called style.search input. And let's create this search input styles here. And let's just give it border width of 1. And now we see that it's actually located below the icon, and we want it to be side by side. So we're going to have to use flex here with the direction of row. So we're going to have to create a style for the container, and let's call it search input container. Let's copy this and paste it in our styles. And let's say flex direction row. And once we do that, we see that our text input component becomes very small, which we don't want to do because otherwise users would have to click exactly here to be able to type. So let's give this a flex of 1 so that it takes up all the space. And here we actually see that between the icon and the input component, we have some kind of margin. So let's set that margin for the search input container. And let's say that margin left is going to be of horizontal scale 6, because that's what's given here. Oh, I applied it to search input container. So let's move it to search input instead. Great. And now what we want to do is we're going to have some kind of padding horizontal as well, so that icon has some room to breathe inside the container. So let's say that search input container has a padding horizontal of horizontal scale 16 as given in the design. We also need some kind of background. So let's copy the color from here and apply the background color to the container. Great. And we also need some height, which is 50. So let's set height to vertical scale of 50. And let's import the vertical scale function so that we don't get any errors. And now we see that our search icon is actually at the very top. So we're going to have to vertically center it. Since our flex direction is row, we need the cross-axis centering. So we're going to choose align items center, and that should fix it. Great. So now if the user is going to want to type something, if they're going to press outside of the text input, we're going to see that we can't focus and start typing. I'm going to have to press exactly here to start typing. So we're going to have to fix that problem. And that problem is going to be fixed with refs. But in order for us to catch the press, instead of view, we're going to have to use the pressable component. So let's do that. And instead of view, let's import the pressable. It shouldn't change our design. And let's set up a function called handle focus. And this function is going to take care of when the text input is going to be focused. But to get a reference to the text input DOM, we're going to have to use refs. So let's import the useRef hook, create a constant for text input reference, and let's use ref with the initial value of null. And let's set the reference here and say that we need to use text input ref. So now on press, we're going to call the handle focus function. And inside here, we're going to use the text input reference, its current value, and we're going to call the function focus that comes with the text input references. And I'm just going to move this up above handle focus so that we know exactly what variable we're using. And if we see how this works now, if I click outside of the text input container, we're going to see that I'm able to focus and start typing as I need to. And also our text input here has a very small height. So let's take care of that and make sure that text input gets height of 100%. great. Once we start typing, we see that the font styling is kind of different from our design. So let's take care of that. Let's go here and see what kind of font styling they need. Let's set up font family for Inter and font size for scale, font size 14. And their line height is actually similar. So I'm just going to copy this line and replace font size with line height. And if I go back and I start typing, I think the main reason we don't see the change is because of color given here, which I forgot to include. So let's do that. And now let's see the design and our simulator. And great, they match up, which is great. And I also see that we don't have the border radius set for our container. So let's do that. Let's say border radius, horizontal scale, 15. And now we have the border radius of 15. And we don't really need this width anymore. And what we do need to do is make sure that font awesome icon matches up with this color here, which is this one here. So let's go here and say color. And the size is of 22. So let's set the size to scale font size 22 and let's save this. Let's see how it looks. And it looks great. So now what we're not going to do is we're not going to give this margin in a component because we don't want to be controlling the margins from the component because we're not going to have as much flexibility when using this component. What if we want the margins to be 36 or 12? So if we want that to happen, we're just going to have to put this in a view container that has a margin horizontal of 24. What we also need to think about is how we're going to take care of what the user is typing here. We're going to have to do some action on anything that user types here, and we're not having any ability to do that from the home screen currently. So we're going to have to set up a prop with a function that handles the search. So let's do that. Let's say that we're going to have props here. And we're going to have to import prop types from prop types to make sure that we have our type checking. So let's do that. Let's set up search default props, first of all, and say that on search is going to have to be a function. And this is not going to be a required prop. It's fine if the user doesn't want to pass anything here. And we're going to say that on search will have to be a function. So we're going to type check like that. And we're going to have to give this function a value every time user uses it here. So we're going to have to track the state of the variable that user types here. So let's use state and let's set up search as a value. Let's set search and let's call use state with an empty string value. And let's say that the text inputs value is equal to search. And every time its text changes, we're going to have to get this value and call handle search function. We're going to pass this value to the handle search, and we're going to have to set up that handle search function here, and it will accept the search value. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to set search to the search value. And the second thing it's going to do is call on search method and pass the search value to it as well. So now if we go to our home screen and create a prop on search, and inside here, we create a console log that logs to us value of what we're typing and save this. If we go to our terminal, reload our application and start typing, we're going to see what we're typing here. So that's it for today's tutorial. We just made our search input component that we can use for our home screen. And in the next video, we're going to be creating the single donation items user can press, and they're going to be redirected to this page here. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Hi, and welcome to this tutorial. Today, we're going to be building a single donation item shown here so that we are able to use these components whenever we want to list our donation items. So for that, we're going to have to create a new component, and we're going to call it single donation item. And inside this directory, we are going to need a file called single donation item.js. And we're also going to need a style.js, inside which we're going to import style sheet from React Native, create a constant for style, and make sure that we have our style sheet created. And we're going to export this style from here so that we're able to import it here. So first things first, we're going to need to import React, and then let's import our style. And then let's create a constant for our single donation item that is definitely going to need props so that we have all of these information passed. So far, we're going to be returning null, and we're going to export single donation item that we are able to see it as we're building it. So since we're going to need props, let's get our type checker for prop types. And let's create single donation item prop types. And let's discuss what we're going to need here. So we're not going to be downloading this image. We're actually going to be displaying real images. So we're going to need a URI for the image that is going to have to be a string, and it's going to be required. We're going to need the badge title so that we show it to the user, and that is going to be a string as well, and it's going to be required. We're going to need a donation title. So that's also going to be a string and is going to be required. And we're going to need the price for donation. That is going to be a number, and it's going to be required. Now let's discuss what components we're going to need to build this. So we're going to need an image, we're going to need a badge, we're going to need a header component. So let's import all of these components here. Let's say that we need an image, and we're also going to need a view container to put all of this here. So let's import this from React Native, and let's import our badge component, and let's import our header component. Great. Now let's start using the single donation item from our homepage so that we're able to see the changes. And right off the bat, it's asking me for the required prop types that I created. So because of this title here that was given in the design, I'm just going to grab a random cactus image. Right, I'm going to save this. And I want you to see props that we make here. So the badge title is going to be environment. The donation title is going to be tree cactus. And then price is going to be $44. So let's save this. And now we have no errors because we have all the prop types passed here. And let's create a view container. I'm going to put it inside the parentheses because I'm going to put some more items here. And we're going to need a view container for the image that will have a source of URI with the props that we passed. And this is going to need some styling. So I'll just create style so that this image is visible. And I'll call it style image. Actually, I don't need two sets of braces here. And then we're going to need a badge here with a title that's passed through the props. And then we're going to need a header with the title of the donation title. And then we need a price. So let's check out this price. So if you're going to see this, you will understand that the font size and line height and all the font styling setup is actually very similar to our type 3 header that we're supposed to use here that I forgot to say here. So it would be a great idea to pass a color that we want to use for the title so that our header can be reused for the price as well. So let's do that. So for that, we're going to need to go to the header and we're going to say that we have one more prop type that is going to be a string and it's not going to be required. And let's say that by default, the color is black. But if a user passes a color, we want to apply that to our text styles. So let's say that props.color, if this is available, then we want to add a color with a color that was passed here. And now we can just save this. And then here we're going to say that for the title, we're actually using a different color than black. So let's pass that color here. And then we're going to use this for the price as well. And here we're going to need this blue color. And right in front of our number, we're going to need the $sign. And what we also want to do is, if the number is not like 44.00 and we want to show it as that, what we could do is use the JavaScript function to fixed to. And now we're able to see all of our setup here. Let's get rid of the home search box so that we're exactly seeing what we have set up here. And the only thing missing is the image because we didn't give it any dimensions. So let's do that. Let's go to our styles and say that image should be how big? Its width should be 155 and height should be 170. So let's do that. And here we're going to say that we need a width of horizontal scaling 155 and a height of vertical scale 170. Let's import both of these scaling functions here. And let's see, we see that image is looking great here. So we're going to need to be styling these items so that it becomes exactly like this. And we're going to be doing that in the next video because I don't want this video to become too big. So I'll see you in the next video and thank you so much for watching. Hi, and welcome back to our tutorial. Today, we're going to be making sure that our single donation item looks exactly like this. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this badge on top of our image. So currently our badge is actually displayed like this, and we don't want to be doing that. So let's create a view container for our badge so that we can apply styles to it. And let's say that style's name is going to be badge. And let's go to our style file, create a badge, and let's say that we need position absolute. And after we set it to position absolute, we don't see this anymore. And it might be because we need the index. So let's set it to 1. And great, now we are able to see it. Let's see the distance from top and left corners. So from top, it should be vertical scale 13. And from left, it should be horizontal scale 10. Let's save this. And great, now we see the badge appear here. Now let's go to single donation file and let's see what's the distance between this container for the title and price, and it is 16. So let's wrap this in a view container. And let's say that this is a style for donation information. Let's copy this name and paste it here. And let's say that it needs margin top of vertical scale 16. And there is some distance between these items as well, which is margin top 5. So let's wrap this as well in a view container. And let's call the price tile that we're going to define here. And we're going to say that it has margin top of vertical scale 5. Great. So now this is looking good, and we want to make sure that our image is fully visible. And for that, we're going to have to go to image and apply a resize mode, contain. Great. Now we're able to see full image. So now that we have all of these ready, we might want to try out how we would lay out, for example, two such components next to each other. So for that, we would just have to create a view container on our home page. And we're going to put two items such as these. And we're just going to apply a style of flex direction row and justify content space between. This looks great. And we could also apply some kind of padding, which is 24 horizontally. So let's do padding horizontal scale 24. And if we do that, this is how it's going to be visible. So that's all for this component. I think we are fully ready to create this page ourselves. And all we need to do really is define a styling for paragraph text, but I think we're just going to take care of that in the screen component itself. So we're ready to start building this application from now on. We're going to work on the payment page separately because this is going to be a part of a module where we're going to set up an actual payment. Let's keep this for another module. Thanks so much for watching. And I'm very excited that we're going to be moving to our new module where you're going to be learning how to set up a Redux store and manage data with it, because it's truly amazing. And the whole reason why we only built the components here and never managed the data or created the actual pages is because I want you to learn how to do all of that using Redux. So I'll see you in the next section. Have a great day.
In this section, we took on the exciting challenge of creating a project from scratch. We focused on project setup, library import, and navigation configuration, putting all our knowledge together to lay a strong foundation for the donation application. Throughout this section, our emphasis was on design and building the necessary components rather than functionality. We highlighted the importance of practicing our skills and gaining confidence in starting projects from the ground up using the skills you've acquired. By working through this section, you gain hands-on experience in creating intuitive and visually appealing user interfaces. We covered topics such as importing libraries, setting up navigation, and building components like headers, buttons, tabs, badges, and search inputs. This section allowed you to solidify your skills and build confidence in tackling your own projects. As we conclude this section, I look forward to the next chapter where we'll take our donation application to the next level. In the upcoming section, we will explore data management systems and learn how to enhance our project by implementing effective data management techniques. Get ready to expand your skills and unlock new possibilities for creating robust and dynamic applications. And see you in the next video.